Shalom from Jerusalem. I call upon Mary Boyes. I hope I pronounce your last name correctly.
You did.
And to introduce General Amidror, whom you met in Israel.
Indeed. Happy to say.
There was no corona.
No corona. Good times.
I still remember the meeting group of, peculiar people who are traveling with the bicycles around the world.
That's right. And Lionel Barber just wrote a long piece in the Financial Times about those trips. He was editor for many years. So welcome, everyone. Thank you, Ephraim, and thank you for joining us, General Amidror. As you know, he was National Security Advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu, Chairman of the National Security Council. He served 36 years in senior IDF posts, including commander of the military colleges. He was military secretary to the Minister of Defense. He's a distinguished fellow at GENSA, the author of 3 books on intelligence and military strategy. There is no one better to inform us this afternoon, this evening, wherever you may be. Over to you, General, and thank you.
So thank you very much for the opportunity. I know if there is one thing that I hate to do is to advise the Americans how America should behave. I think it's not our job. It's not our job. It's not our interest. You know better than us what is good for America, what is bad for America. So I'll speak about Afghanistan from the international point of view, from the Middle East point of view, and from the Israeli point of view. And I will let you to discuss it between yourselves from the American point of view. So first, I think it's very important to mention that the decision to pull out from Afghanistan, together with the decision to decrease the amount of responsibility for the military forces, the American military forces in Iraq, to the level of training and not more than that, is very significant. But it's not a decision which was taken by one president against all his predecessors' tradition. On the contrary, the first one to speak about the change that Americans should do was President Obama when he spoke about pivoting to the East meaning China. It was President Trump who ordered to pull out the forces from Iraq and Syria, and then decided to change his decision, and it was never materialized. And the agreement that he signed with the Taliban in Afghanistan as a preparation for pulling out the American forces, again, it was not materialized, and there is a big question, could it be materialized at all? And the decision of President Biden is the third one. Why it is so important? Because, when you look at processes from time to time, you can say, you know what, it's a decision which of someone which is against the history and the tradition and the notion and the assessment and so on and so forth. Not in this case. In this case, it is one by one, if you look at least 10 years backwards, it is the third president, and it is probably an historic event, but meaning historic event that it is not a craziness of one president. It's the sentiment of the American people, which led in a democratic way, slowly, to decision of the decision makers to pull out the forces from the old wars, which didn't, according to many critics of those wars, contributed to the security and the benefits and the interest of the United States of America. As I said, it's 2 Democratic presidents and 1 Republican, which came to the same conclusion. So we those who are living in the Middle East have to understand that sentiment in the United States of America is probably very strong to pull out from the Middle East. Now we can ask why, and I think that the question, the answer is probably based on two facts. One, America needs much less more the energy from the Middle East if you compare it to 20 years ago. Between Canada and Mexico, there is enough energy for three countries, Mexico, United States of America, and Canada. The price that was paid by the Americans is enormous. I mean, Pakistan alone, it's $2.5 trillion and at least 10,000 casualties, wounded and killed American soldiers. And at the end, what is the benefit? What America is earning from it? But criticism over the world and in Afghanistan itself. So we can like it or not, it is not in our hands anyhow. For us, what important is to understand that this is a long process based on very deep American sentiment. So it is not going to be changed. And what we have to ask ourselves, those who are living in the Middle East, is how we are dealing with this situation when the old umbrella with which we used to live in the Middle East since the British left the area, this umbrella is not existing anymore, at least not in the level that it was exist before the decisions of these three presidents. So this is the new situation. About the pictures that we see, the atmosphere which it built, and the consequences from the implementation on the ground of this decision, the sad results inside Afghanistan relating to women, educated people, living back under the Sharia law, which all of us cannot understand how people can live. It's going back to the dark age. There are consequences, probably yes, but it's too early to judge. We don't know yet what will be the implications of this new situation, old new situation in Pakistan, going back to the dark age under the Taliban. Around Pakistan, there are at least two very important countries that will have to make their decisions. The first one is Iran, the Shiite leader. They have to cope with a very extreme Sunni organization, which is basically against all the notions of the Shiite beliefs. What will be the relations between the Shiite Iran and the Sunni Afghanistan? From what happened since the change in Afghanistan, we see that the Iranians opened the gates, are providing oil to the Taliban. My assessment is that the Iranians will try to find a balance of power and to live with the consequences, and not to let the differences, or religious differences between the two sides to make the ground full of wars and so on and so forth. They will try to find a way to compromise with the situation as much as they can. The second country is China. China is oppressing today Sunni minority, the Uyghurs. Theoretically, the Taliban should be those who will try to influence and to connect themselves to the oppressed Sunnis inside China. I believe that the Chinese will try to buy Afghanistan, to invest in Afghanistan, to bring support that cannot be achieved from any other country to the economy of Afghanistan, to make agreement with the Taliban that will not let the tension between the very extreme Sunni movement and the Communist Party ideology to spill into China. The Pakistanis Taliban will have to swallow the oppression of the Sunnis minority in China, and China will try to make all the efforts to build itself as a supportive force of the Taliban, to use the weak situation of the Taliban as a system, and to gain as much as possible concessions to go into Pakistan and to dig diamonds, rare earth materials, and so on and so forth. Pakistan is very rich in some areas of those materials which are very needed in the world today. And I'm sure that China will do whatever is needed to satisfy the Afghan decision makers in a way that will allow Chinese companies to go and to dig in Afghanistan. I think that it will not influence the race between China and America, because at the end of the day, the decision of China to change the whole philosophy and policy of China is not based on an occasion of the Americans are pulling out from the Middle East, or the way that it was accepted as a very bad implementation of the decision, and so on and so forth. So this is something much deeper than that. It is about the position of China in the 21st century as substitute to the order which had been built by the Americans after the Second World War. With the success or failure in Afghanistan, with all due respect to the bad pictures, this is not the issue here. It will be more about the relations between China and Afghanistan than about the race between China and America. An area in which the Americans will have to make decision is Taiwan, because if the Chinese learn from this event that America is not ready anymore to sacrifice for allies the life of its soldiers, the end of Taiwan. Because this is the main barrier for the Chinese to annex Taiwan, is the understanding that might mean a war with America. And if it will be clear in Beijing that this is not the meaning, because of the experience in Afghanistan, and I'm not saying that this is the lesson from Afghanistan, but it might be accepted as the lesson by the Chinese, then it's America-Taiwan relations are in big trouble. And I think if there is an area in which in the Southeast Asia, the Americans will have to show something, is a better obligation and clear obligation, commitment to Taipei, to Taiwan. Otherwise, it might be understood wrongly by China. From the Middle East point of view, the question that is in front of the decision makers in all the Arab countries is how to continue without.
By the way,
What the Arab countries which are facing threat from Turkey one side and Iran from the other side, what should be their reaction when the American umbrella is diminishing? They have two main options. One is to unite between themselves and to decide that, okay, the Americans are slowly pulling out, but they're still there and they're still strong enough. And if we build a coalition of all the Arab states with a little bit help from the American, we can stand against the threat of the Shiite superpower Iran and the Sunni non-Arab country Turkey, which both have dreams about how to influence and to control, in some cases, Arab states. The other option is to learn from Afghanistan that the Americans are not ready anymore to sacrifice, are not ready anymore to invest. We, the Arab countries, are not strong enough to face and to contain the Iranians and the Turks, and we have to compromise and to find agreements in which we are giving up part of our autonomy or sovereignty and so on and so forth, and we will have to live with these opponents of the Sunni Arab states without the Americans, and the meaning of it is to compromise with them. How to compromise, where to compromise, this is a big question, because the more you compromise, the more the other side is pushing, and I know where it might begin, I don't know, and they don't know where it might end. If they decide to go the first, to take the first option, I mean to united and together to make themselves ready to push back the both Turkey and Iran. Here they might find that the best ally to do it together with the Arab Sunni states is the state of Israel. This is first time of the history in the history of the state of Israel that the Arabs need the relations with Israel more than Israel needs the relations with the Arab states. If in the past we ask ourselves who is ready to unite with us and to build a coalition against the Arab states, here the question is totally different, is who in the Arab states is ready to build a coalition against the non-Arab countries which are very aggressive in the Middle East. It's Turkey and Iran. Iran and Turkey, depends where. And here the success of building such a coalition with Israel might be the best way to contain those countries. Israel can provide technology and in some civilian areas, that those countries will be less dependent on oil, and they can provide their own water and agriculture and food security and so on and so forth. And at the same time, to enhance the military relations at the beginning, at least intelligence, cyber, and so on, and in the future, who knows how it will go. This is a decision that the Arab states will have to make, because they need someone to refill the vacuum of the Americans. Of course, there is no vacuum in the nature, and we will see more Chinese involvement and more Russian involvement in the area. We could see it in Syria. I will not be surprised if China will take more steps towards investing economically to rebuild Syria, maybe Libya, in which the Turks are very much involved. I don't know what will be in Yemen after the decision of the Americans not to continue to support the Saudi Arabia there. Who will come in and will try to find and to moderate an agreement. Remember that outside the Arab world and the Middle East, there is a big war now in Ethiopia. What will happen there? What is the relations between and the consequences of such a war on the Horn of Africa, in which China is very strong? They have the first basis out of the region is in Djibouti. All these puzzle, the parts of the puzzle are connected, and it's too early to judge how it will be ended, but no question that without the readiness of the Americans to be engaged. It's a totally different ball game, and the countries on the area will have to make decisions and to take into consideration the fact that we will see around us more Chinese and Russians that also should be influential on the region. We see it in Syria, and the decision of the Arab countries, will they be ready to cooperate between themselves first, and then with Israel or without Israel, is the second issue. Relating to the relations between the Israel and the United States of America, here for Israel, it's a huge opportunity. The more the Americans are pulling out, the more Israel is becoming important for the national security of the United States of America. Israel will remain at the end the only piece of land in the Middle East in which the Americans can have sympathy, and they can rely on the stability of the state. How to integrate this fact into the future position of the United States of America in the Middle East, it's a good question, and this is, I think, should be one of the topics that will be discussed between the President of the United States of America and the Prime Minister of Israel, who is flying tomorrow to Washington. It is a very interesting question. The answer is not easy. I'm not sure that the Israelis are ready to take part in wars which do not about defending their own borders. I'm not sure that the Americans want to see Israeli forces combined with American forces fighting somewhere in the Middle East. One thing is very clear: we don't want the Americans to fight for Israel. We want Americans to continue their support in the international community, to give us the ability to buy in America by giving us the $3.8 billion and even more. We are ready to buy the American technology if it be provided by the Americans. Everything which is not about fighting for Israel in the battlefield. This is one of the cornerstones of our philosophy. Israel should be in a position to defend itself by itself. The meaning of it, when the Americans are pulling out, that Israel will have to invest more in its capabilities, because now Israel is more lonely than before, and we will have to solve many problems by ourselves because the Americans are not here anymore, and probably will not be ready to invest in future challenges. And it is relating to Iran, it's relating to Turkey, it's relating to some terrorist organization, it is Hezbollah, ISIS, and others. Israel will have to understand that from now on, Israel is more lonely in the Middle East, should be helped when the Americans will ask for help, but never be in a position that we are asking the Americans to help us. We should provide solutions to our problems and deal with our challenges by ourselves. And this is the main lesson that I learned from the decision of the Americans to take themselves out of Afghanistan. I'm not judging them, but I think that this is the most important lesson for the state of Israel. And now it's open to questions.
Please raise your hand or use the chat function to ask questions. Any questions? Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. Your analysis is based on war as it's seen today, or as it's seen through history. But now that we're into cyber attacks, what do you see? How do you see the battlefield changing there? Do you think the Americans will stay away from that battlefield as well? And if not, do you think that will be the new battlefield?
I think that people intend to go to cyber frequently, even if you go to the practicalities, cyber is not the factor on the ground. I don't think that the Americans can change the situation in Afghanistan with cyber. the Taliban are not exposed to cyber. They don't have too many sophisticated communications and other areas in which the Americans can make the difference. About the fact that the Americans are pulling out from the Middle East with cyber or without cyber, I don't think that that will change the reality on the ground. When you don't have your forces here, when you are not ready to fight, cyber might help you from time to time, but this is not a substitute to real forces on the ground in most of the cases. Yes, it might help if you are ready to make walls and to invest on the ground or by Air Force. Cyber can be very helpful, either to get intelligence or to help you in the battlefield, but it's not a substitute to lack of military capability. If you lose the boots on the ground, and it doesn't matter if those boots are of the Air Force or the ground forces or both or the Navy, I don't think that cyber for itself will be a good substitute. Yes, it can help from time to time. Intelligence gathering is much better when you have a good cyber. If it is countries with a very sophisticated war machine, you can influence it by using cyber, but it's not a real substitute. And I think that this new tradition in the West to apply to cyber when they are not ready to sacrifice is a very poor solution.
Thank you.
Betty Ehrenberg.
Shalom, thank you so much. Thank you, General. I wanted to ask you, we're imagining what the conversation between Mr. Bennett and Mr. Biden might be on Thursday. And I'm wondering, what are you thinking? What are the issues that Mr. Bennett will bring to Mr. Biden about China? They both have slightly different, well, maybe very different views about the Chinese role in the world, the Chinese role in the Middle East at the moment. And I'm also wondering on a different question, is there, what is the feeling in the Israeli security community once they saw all those bad pictures regarding the Afghanistan hasty pullout? Thank you.
I think that when Israelis look at the pictures in Afghanistan, first of all, it reminded us that we made the same kind of retreat from Lebanon, and again, the pictures were not very nice pictures. But I think that the lesson of most of the Israelis will be, Israel should be strong enough that we will not be in a position that we need American soldiers to fight us, because at the end, Israel should be in a position to defend itself by itself, something that the Pakistani regime couldn't provide to its own people. And this is, from our point of view, the main lesson. About China, I'm not sure that there is a big gap between the president, the prime minister, about China's role in the world. But Israel, unlike America, is not competing with China. For us, China is a partner for economy. We don't see China as a substitute to any of our significant parts of our national security. It's economic partner. I can tell you that in the first meeting between the Prime Minister of Israel and the President of China, the second sentence was, you have to understand, Mr. President, that Mr. Secretary of the party, that President Xi, that Israel has an agreement with America, and we will not provide you with military capabilities or dual-use technology. And it was clear from the beginning. What is the level of cooperation relating to economy between Israel and China? believe me, the trade between China and Israel is much less than between the United States of America and China. And America is much more important partner for trade for China than Israel. If there are some areas in which it is very important for the United States of America that Israel will not trade with the Chinese, I'm sure that the president can tell the prime minister, and I'm sure that in the professional level it was discussed before the meeting itself. So I don't see a big gap. I'm not speaking about very specific project, but I don't see a big gap between Israel point of view assessing the China and the American assessing of China. The big difference is that we are not competing with China, and America is competing with China, or China is competing with America and not competing with Israel. And here I think that all the problems can be mitigated in a very professional level, that both sides will feel that they have benefit from the agreement between Israel and America relating to the relation with China. And again, the level of trade between China and America is much, much, much bigger than the level of trade between Israel and America and China.
Thank you.
Larry?
Most of the people in Afghanistan are young people, and they're using social media for communication. How do we deal with that, and how do we control the social media? Because they're basically unifying the country through social media. And what can we do?
I think that in the future, the use of social media will be very much reduced. The hands of the Taliban will be very, very heavy on those young people. And I read Thomas Friedman dreams about changing that will come because the new generation will be against the Taliban way of living. I think it's a very naive dream which will not be materialized in Afghanistan. My assessment is that the Taliban will use strong hand against all those liberal thoughts and attitudes and behavior of the young generation, and they will have to accommodate to a dark age standard of living with very few abilities to use the social media.
I would like to add that I'm very skeptic about anybody achieving unity in Afghanistan, taking into consideration, the ethnic groups. We have the Pashtuns, which is the Taliban. Basically, we have Uzbeks, Tajiks, Baluchis in the south, and all those ethnic groups have their own agendas. And one reason that Afghanistan has been ungovernable for tens or hundreds of years is because of this, multi-ethnic composition. Yes, Yaniv.
Good evening, General Amidror. Thank you for sharing your time with us again. I wanted to ask you, if you look around the region, a deteriorating state in Lebanon, a new conservative government in Iran supporting the parallel states, the Russians purportedly shooting Israeli missiles out of the sky in Syria. Is there anything that you look at and worry about as a potential imminent threat to our national security, or something that's going to take up a lot of our attention in the next couple of months or years as a possible diplomatic crisis or national security crisis?
I think that the media is making more noises about the Russian interception of Israeli missiles in Syria than the reality on the ground. It is capability that we know how to deal with. It's not 100%, and we know how to calculate it into our operations. At the end of the day, yes, it's a big challenge. The Russian weapon systems are very high advanced, sophisticated, and so on and so forth, but it is something that we know basically how to deal with all the problems. It's a great challenge, but the combination between American technology and Israel technology and operational capability, we have solutions, not 100% solutions, but we have solutions. About Lebanon, this is a clear result of the interference or the fact that Lebanon is basically controlled by Hezbollah, and Hezbollah doesn't let any government to control, not to gauge any agreement relating to the gas fields of Lebanon in the Mediterranean that might provide a lot of money to Lebanon. In the end, they are selling oil from Iran to Lebanon, by the way, violating all the sanctions of which supposed to be imposed by the United States of America. Let's see what will be the reaction in America when at the same time they are negotiating the agreement with Iran. This is the problem of Lebanon. It's not a new one. It's a state which does not exist as a state. It's a constitution which the area controlled by the Iranians. Syria, it is not one state, it is at least 4 states. It's the area which controlled by Assad. It's the area in the north which controlled by the extreme Sunni rebels or movements. It's the Turks which conquered some areas in the north, and the Kurds, with a lot of help from the United States of America, controlling the east side of Syria. Iraq is going slowly to be under influence of the Iranians. I don't see the Americans ready to invest what is needed to stop this process. The Saudis try to buy out some influence in Iraq. I don't know if they succeed or not. The Iranians are much more aggressive there, and they have the support of many Shiites, although not all the Shiites in Iraq like the situation in which the Iranians are much more involved than in the past. Yemen is in shame. Libya is not a state. Yemen is not a place. Yes, you are right. There are many problems in the Middle East. From the Israeli point of view, the main issue, and will remain the main issue, and probably will be the first one and the most important one to discuss with the president, is the ability of the Iranians to build nuclear military capability. That should be stopped, either by the Americans or by us or by both. Israel will not let it happen. I hope that Israel will be strong enough and determined enough not to let it happen. The second is the combination between the efforts of the Iranians and the establishment of Hezbollah and independent Iranian military capability in Syria. The Iranians are try to build a ring of fire around Israel. One element is to provide the Hezbollah with very precise weapon systems. The second one is to build this capability inside Syria independently, controlled by the Iranians under the sovereign flag of Syria. And the third is to use West Iraq against Israel as a hub for the logistic, but at the same time also as an area from which they can launch missiles into Israel. The idea is to bring the capabilities of Iran very close to the borders of Israel, in Lebanon, in Syria, and from Iraq. And at the same time, Tehran is far away, defended by the long range from Israel. And for that, Israel should build capabilities that will allow us to answer to the Iranian threat, although Tehran is so far. It would be easier to do it with the Americans, but we will have to be in a position to do it without the Americans, because we don't know if the Americans will be ready to go the whole way. My assessment that they will be very reluctant to do it. So this is the issue. from the Israeli point of view, these are the two main issues. Nuclear Iran and the independent the Iranians' effort to build a ring of fire around Israel. Secondary to that is the Middle East itself. What will happen in Jordan, what will happen in Egypt, how we build stability in the area, how we help the Jordanians to face the problems that they are facing and not to collapse, how we are helping the Egyptians to fight ISIS in the Sinai, and we are doing it. It's a good cooperation. How we are providing the Arab countries which signed agreement with Israel more benefits, that it is clear that it is good to have these relations with Israel. I'm speaking about the Egyptians, the Jordanians with the old agreement, the Gulf countries, Morocco, and probably Sudan with the new agreement, the Abraham Accord, how we are bringing more countries into the Abraham Accord, and the first one, of course, is Saudi Arabia. Very much depends on the efforts of the Americans. The Americans administration can make the difference for the Saudis in this case. If America decide to provide the Saudis with the comfort that if they go with Israel and encourage and broaden the Abraham Accord, that they would be in a better situation in Washington, that might bring the Saudis into the Accord and to make a different Middle East. Here is the area, the secondary tier of the second tier of problems that Israel is facing is the stability of the countries with which we have agreements and the countries in which the both Turkey and Iran are very aggressive. The third area is an opportunity for Israel. We succeeded to build, and I must say with a lot of encouragement from our institution led by Ephraim many years ago, to build different relations with Cyprus, Greece, and to use the Mediterranean basin based on the gas which was found in Egypt and near Cyprus and Israel together to build something different, which we didn't have in the past. And we are more than happy to see that it is happening. There is a project of the Europeans to connect the electricity of Europe through Greece and Cyprus into Israel. So Israel and Cyprus will not be islands of electricity. We know that there are relations between Israel and Egypt and Cyprus relating to the gas field. We have to encourage it. We are now providing gas to Jordan last week, and to build around this energy connection something different which will enhance the relations of Israel, leaving alone the Arab world behind us and provide us face towards Europe, which is different than the relations in the past. These are the three areas that Israel should make its efforts: Iran, the stability of states with which we have agreements, and the East Mediterranean.
Greg, did you ask?
Actually, my basic question was answered, but I came up with another one, and it's really this, and it deals with the Palestinians. Are there parallels between the Taliban and their activities and who they are and what they are, and the Palestinians, particularly Hamas, but more broadly the entire Palestinian movement, to which Israel could draw attention in explaining and justifying to the international community why it adopts the policies, why it pursues the policies that it does, particularly with this two-state solution concept, which is, is still very much with us. At least it is here.
It's a very interesting question, and people used to say in the past, don't exaggerate. The Palestinians are not like the Taliban, are not like ISIS, are not like Al Qaeda, blah 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 blah. The question was solved. The first leader in the world to call the Taliban and to identify with the vision of the Taliban was the leader of Hamas. are many principles which shared by both movements, Hamas and the Taliban. And the first and the most important one was the phrase which was is the slogan of the Muslim Brotherhood: Islam will hal. Islam is the solution. They can argue which Islam, but the Islam is the solution, is the slogan of Hamas, is the slogan of the Taliban, is the slogan of ISIS, is the slogan of Al-Qaeda. If there is an argument and they're ready to kill each other about the argument, is which Islam? But the Sharia, the pure Sharia law, is the basis for all these movements. By the way, the first one was the Muslim Brotherhood, which Hamas is the Palestinian branch of this movement. And you know, from our one point of view, Islam huwa al-hal. Islam is the solution. So if there was, you know, people used to say that we are exaggerating, here Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, made it clear. We are with you, we are like you, we have the same vision. So the answer is very clear. Just quote Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, and you understand. And remember, Hamas won the elections in 2006.
Five, I believe.
And 5. They won the elections. And Abu Mazen decided not to go this time to an election after it was declared that he is going to, because he understood that he is going to lose and Hamas will win. So today, all those who are preaching us for two-state solution have to ask themselves if they are ready that the West Bank will be controlled by not the Taliban, but a movement which is not far from the Taliban.
Yeah. Any other? We have another question here. What does a seeming lack of competence in the U.S. government pull out from Afghanistan, both for the continuing U.S. negotiations with Iran? Is there any link?
If there is a link, it will be decided in Washington. Here, Washington has 2 options. One is to compromise just to have an agreement, and the Iranians will use the weak situation of the administration to push more and to achieve more in the negotiations. The other option is totally on the other side. Say someone in Washington will say we are losing our position in the Middle East. We are losing our position around the world. People are looking for the situation in Afghanistan might come to the conclusion that there is a level of incompetence here in the implementation of the decision, leave alone if the decision was the right one or not. So we should be much more stronger and to show that America is still a superpower. I don't want to go into the details, but once I had a discussion with one of the decision makers in America when I was as the National Security Advisor of Israel, and the conversation was about the importance of credibility for a superpower. I asked why you don't do that and not do that, and the explanation was we can get more by doing differently. We don't have to use that because we can do something else, and so on and so forth. And I said, but you are losing credibility. And I saw that although that was a very important decision maker, he didn't grasp that the fact that for superpower, credibility is almost everything. What does it mean you are a superpower? It means that when you hint something, people, decision makers on the other side, do not want to test you. And for that, you need credibility. And by losing credibility, you are losing the ability to be a superpower because people test you and then you have to make a decision if you act or not. And in many cases, you don't want to act. And you want to be a superpower that by hinting something, you don't have to act. So losing credibility is maybe the balance between being a superpower and not being a superpower. It's not just about the real power that you have. It's about how other people understand your readiness to use the power and your determination to stand behind your red lines. And here, no question that the Americans, that people might think that America is losing part of its stamina to act. And for that, Americans will have to make decisions. Do we want to make them understand that we still have the stamina and we will be strong and stronger and we will remain strong in the future, and if they don't behave, they will see that we have capabilities, or the Americans will say, no, we are not ready to invest, and if the lesson of the others that we don't have the stamina, they're right, we don't have the stamina. So the decision at the end is in the hands of the decision makers. It's not an objective situation, it's a very subjective situation, subject to the decision in Washington.
Millie.
I have a question, yes. With Pakistan having nuclear weapons, how serious is the risk that the Taliban can have a hold of these weapons or other bad players?
As far as we know, and the truth is that the way that Pakistanis are controlling their weapon system is a big question between within the professional community. I don't see any threat to the Pakistani nuclear capability, which can be reached by the Taliban. And I think it's far behind their capacity.
Thank you.
If something can endanger the situation in Pakistan, is changes in Pakistan itself.
By the way, there are plans, contingency plans in the United States to take care of.
If they know, if they know where it is planned, they don't know. Okay.
Must send Biden a map of where Pakistan is.
Yeah. Any other questions, Betty? Unmute yourself.
Sorry. How will Turkey be affected by all of this upheaval in Afghanistan, or do you think it's outside of all of this?
No. There's immediately said that they have common ground with the Taliban. They are from the same religion. They congratulate them for winning the war against the non-Muslims, and Turkey try to be more involved in Afghanistan. How it will be done, if it will be done, will the Pakistanis will be ready to accept Turks inside Afghanistan? It's a big question mark, but Turkey try at least to use it as an opportunity to infiltrate into Pakistan and to take part in the big sale of Pakistan of today.
Thank you.
Any other question? Okay. I want to thank General Amidror for his lucid analysis. And I wish everybody, Shana Tova from Jerusalem. And I hope to see all of you at our next briefing.